So now I have a paint palette, and I'm going to clean my brush really well, and I'm going to start over again with the white. And I can see on my cloth that I didn't get it clean enough. Really going to clean that brush well. And when you're working with paints, the rule is to start with the weaker or lighter color, because it's more easy to change than a darker or stronger color. So I've put just a small amount of white on my palette. I don't need much more than that because I'm really just painting these small areas. I'm going to use another brush to dip some green and put it along the side. Then I'm going to start to mix it in. And what I'm going for is the lightest version of my color that I can get and still see that there's green in it. These colors do change a little bit when they dry. Most of them tend to get a little darker. That's okay. Mix it really well so that when you paint it down, you don't have any streaks. And I'm rubbing off the extra paint so I don't have a big globby amount on my brush. And because this is my lightest value, I'm going to paint it in the number 1 spot. If mixing colors and painting is relatively new to you, it's not a bad idea to have a piece of scrap paper nearby so you can test your colors on them. We use test strips in my Art Fundamentals class when we do color wheels so that they can test them and make sure they've gotten 50% halfway between each color when they do a change. And I am asking you to try to make even changes in value, meaning lightness and darkness, between each color. So there's my first one. I really don't need to clean my brush because I'm still working with the same colors. So I'm going to pull down some more green. And I'm going to be making 2 in between here and here. So I think I'm going to need some more green, because it's going to need to be a fairly good size change in order to bridge the gap between the two. And I think that looks pretty good. It's got nice body, but it's not terribly dark yet. And you may have noticed that when you add white to a color, it makes it more opaque. The streaks are not showing up quite as much. Like you can't see the paper through it as much. So I'm going to go ahead, paint it in. Make sure I get it all the way to the edges. It's your choice if you want to see the black line in between them. I prefer to get rid of it. Go up into the corner. Sometimes wiggling the brush does a nice job of getting it into corners. And now I'm going to do one more, trying to get that green have a little more oomph to it so that it's halfway between here and here. So I'm going to need some more paint. But you can see I haven't added any more white. In fact, I've got quite a bit of white left over. So the black and white containers that I gave you guys this week, you should have enough, really, to paint your whole painting. A little bit of these paints go a long ways, if you're careful about how you mix them. And I totally understand if mixing paints and colors is new to you and you need to get more of a color, that's okay too. But I would just advise you to sort of go slow, add little bits at a time until you get it where you want it to be. So that looks a little darker. I'm going to paint it down and we'll see when it dries if it's got enough color in it. You can always go over these paints with another color unless you're trying to color something really light and see-through like yellow on top of something dark like blue or green or basically anything other than yellow. There we go, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm gonna clean off my brush. And if you had to guess, which would you think was weaker, black or green? If you said green, you would be right. So I'm gonna start over with some fresh green. I wanna make sure all of the white is out of my brush. So I could actually even just pour this color. It's thin enough for me to pour some in. And on the assignment, I suggest a nickel-sized amount. I just maybe poured something closer to a quarter, but you know, that's okay. And then I'm gonna take the teeniest amount of black, and I'll show you what I mean. See that? Not much color on my brush at all. And then we're just gonna see what happens when I paint it, when I mix it into the edge. So it changed my color, not a whole lot, but enough that it's not gonna be that brilliant pure green anymore. So I'm really mixing it well. Try to get out, I can see some streaks. And now I'm gonna turn this around just so that my hand is not going over the wet paint. And the first color that I mixed with black is gonna go in the number 5 spot. Not terribly pretty, but that's what you get when you mix black with a sort of lime green. And you can see that the black is somewhat transparent like the green itself, so I'm not getting as much coverage as I did with the white. It's good just to get to know the properties of your paints as you work with them, so you can anticipate any problems that might come up. With these paints, you don't especially have to smooth them out. They do tend to flatten down as they dry, but the more transparent it is, the more you'll see those streaks. You can see a little bit in my number 4 spot. And because we're focused in this one on color and not opacity, it's okay if we see your streaks. So I'm going to put more black on my palette. Add it in. Ooh, that was way too much. Did you see what just happened? So I'm going to wipe as much off as I can. I'm going to start another section. It's always better to start over when you're mixing colors than to try to, if I were to try to lighten this black right here, it could use most of that green just to make that change. So instead I scooped some more green, put it over here, and mixed just what was already on my brush of black into it. And remember, we're trying to have small, even steps, so with black, a little goes a long way. I just crossed over the line. Oh no! That's okay. But that is a good technique. Like if you have a fully loaded brush and you stay just inside your line and then press down, you allow the paint to actually make the line, not the bristles of the brush. And I'm going to smooth out a little bit what I've already got, get a little bit more, fill in that last corner. There we go, that's my number 6. Now my number 7, I'm going to add more black to what I already have mixed up. And try not to get it too dark. Your number 7 should not be pure black. It should be just a little bit darker than your number 6, so an even enough change between 5 and 6 and 6 and 7. Let's see if that's dark enough. I would say yes. I could probably go a little darker, but I'll know better when it dries. So there you have it, a 7-step value scale from the lightest green, oh, I got a spot of black on it, up through 2 to 3 light values. Number 4 is the pure color. 5, I started to add black. 6, a little more black. 7, a little more black. And that's all there is to it. Let me know if you have any questions.